The Indiana Fever didn't just lose to the Las Vegas Aces in Game 5. They were robbed of fair fight. After clawing their way through one of the most emotional and physically brutal playoff series in recent WNBA history, the Fever were forced to watch their season collapse under the weight of questionable officiating, shattered bodies, and a system that seemed rigged from the jump. The scoreboard might say Aces win, but everything about how this series ended screams injustice.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Indiana came in as a 6th seed. No one expected them to make it out of the first round, let alone push the defending champs to the brink of elimination. But game after game, they kept showing up, taped up, bruised, shorthanded, and still swinging. They lost Kelsey Mitchell to cramps. Aaliyah Boston played through constant foul trouble. Lexie Hull gritted through injury like her career depended on it, and Odyssey Sims signed off a hardship contract, delivered one of the most clutch performances of the entire postseason. It was heart over hype, grit over glamour, and still it wasn't enough, because what they were up against wasn't just a dynasty team stacked with stars. It was the invisible wall of officiating decisions that just never seemed to break in their favor. Obvious fouls ignored, momentum-killing whistles, free throw disparities that made the court feel slanted. The Fever weren't just playing basketball. They were battling the narrative. This wasn't a meltdown. It was a revelation, a moment that exposed just how skewed the balance of power can be when the calls go one way and the fight goes the other. No matter how hard the Fever played, there was always another hurdle, another flagrant not called, another possession stolen by a whistle. They weren't just fighting for a title. They were fighting to be seen, to be respected, to not be silenced by the script. Lexie Hull's leadership in post-game fire said what fans were already screaming. Something isn't right here. This wasn't just an upset denied. It was a story interrupted. But if this series did one thing, it lit a fuse. The Fever may have been sent home, but they're not going anywhere. With Boston, Clark, Mitchell, Sims, and Hull in the mix, and a culture built on fight over flash, they're not just building a team. They're building a movement. The loss will sting. The footage will infuriate. But what the Indiana Fever left on that court wasn't just effort. It was a warning. They're coming back. And next time, it won't be a question of fairness. It'll be a reckoning. Lexie Hull just quit the WNBA. And she didn't go quietly. After a grueling 5-game playoff series between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces, the gloves are off and the receipts are flying. Hull didn't just exit the court. She exposed what she claims is a rigged system propping up the league's darlings. And now, fans are left wondering, did we just witness one of the most heartbreaking underdog stories, or the most blatant case of favoritism in recent league history? Let's rewind to the start of the chaos. The Indiana Fever came into the playoffs as the 6th seed. No one expected much. This team had been scrappy all season, but in a league that loves its star power, no one thought they'd push the reigning champions to a do-or-die Game 5. But they did. And they did with half their squad held together by tape and willpower. The Las Vegas Aces, on the other hand, were the safe bet. They had the hype, the legacy, the full-blown dynasty narrative that the league was clearly rooting for. But when Indiana came swinging, gritty, physical, and relentless, it started to feel like the script wasn't going to plan. That's when the whistles started blowing, and not in Indiana's favor. From the very first game, the officiating was questionable. Missed calls, ticky-tack fouls, and a glaring imbalance in free throw attempts started raising eyebrows. Indiana players were getting slammed with contact, while Aces players were practically being escorted to the line. Fans noticed. Commentators noticed. And by Game 5, even the players couldn't keep their mouths shut. It wasn't just one bad call. It was a pattern, a steady drip of decisions that stifled Indiana's momentum, broke their rhythm, and gave Vegas just enough edge to survive each push. And when it started happening at every critical moment, people started asking real questions. But the Fever didn't fold. Despite losing key players like Kelsey Mitchell to cramps and Aaliyah Boston battling foul trouble, they dug in. Odyssey Sims, signed on a hardship contract, mind you, turned into a one-woman show. She dropped 27 points in Game 5, played like she had something personal against every defender, and nearly carried the Fever over the finish line. Aaliyah Boston, she fought through double teams and questionable calls all series, playing anchor on both ends. Shah Petty, with barely any minutes to her name, came in and still put up critical points. This wasn't a team riding on luck. They were hustling, bruised, and pushing through pure chaos. And right in the middle of that storm was Lexie Hull. She wasn't lighting up the scoreboard. She wasn't flashy. But she was everywhere, taking charges, calling out switches, diving for loose balls, and keeping the team's energy on life support. Playing hurt, Hull still managed to be the heart of the defense and the voice in the huddle. And when the final whistle blew on a loss that felt stolen, she didn't hold back. In a now viral post-game interview, Hull didn't mince words. She called out the officiating. She demanded accountability from the league. She spoke on behalf of her team, her coaches, and fans who watched 5 games of what looked a lot more like politics than basketball. And just days later, she was gone. Out. Done with the WNBA. Was it frustration? Principle? Maybe both. But Hull walking away after putting her body on the line, and then seeing the whole series bend toward the Aces says everything. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just a playoff loss. This was a test. And the Fever, even in defeat, proved something big. They weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to survive 5 games against the Aces. But they did, with a roster that looked like a walking injury report and refs that seemed allergic to blowing the whistle for anything happening to them. They still fought to the brink of victory. This was a series won with grit, not glamour. And yet, the shadow of officiating hung over everything. Whether it was the missed calls, the free throw disparity, or the perfectly timed fouls that killed Indiana's rhythm, there's no denying it changed the game. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to notice when the calls start tilting the floor, and when players are out here risking injury for a fair shot, only get penalized for breathing too hard on a star player. It starts to feel less like a game and more like a performance. The fallout has been messy. Fans are furious. Clips of blown calls are circulating online like wildfire. The WNBA's silence? Deafening. And meanwhile, the Aces move on, championship narrative intact, while the Fever are left picking up the pieces. But here's what can't be rigged. Heart. Indiana might have lost on the scoreboard, but they won on grit, on guts, and on sheer tenacity. Every player who limped, dove, and screamed through the series showed what this team is becoming. Not just a squad of scrappy underdogs, but a problem for every elite team going forward. Caitlin Clark wasn't even active in this series, and she'll be back. The foundation? It's built. Players like Sims and Hull showed what leadership and fight really look like. And the younger core? They've tasted the playoffs now. They know what it takes. And they've seen what happens when you scare the league's darlings. The Fever didn't just play through adversity. They defined it. This wasn't just about missed calls. It was about building something through the fire. And if you're not scared what this team will look like next season, you're not paying attention. As for Lexie Hull, whether she returns or not, her exit makes one thing clear. Players are done being silent. Done taking the high road when bad officiating cost them everything they've worked for. Her departure is more than a retirement. It's a protest. So, WNBA, are you listening? This league wants to grow. It wants respect. But growth means accountability. And when your rising stars are walking away in protest, that's not just bad optics. That's a crisis. The Fever may be out of the playoffs, but they've already won something bigger. The respect of fans who watch them bleed for every possession. Their fight turned heads. Their spirit shook the status quo. And their resilience? That's the stuff dynasties are built on. Because next season, they're not coming back as the underdog. They're coming back angry, motivated, and with a memory as long as that Game 5 whistle delay. So now it's your move, WNBA. Fix the officiating. Respect the fight. And give teams like the Fever a fair shot. Because if this is what they can do against the odds, just wait until the odds are even. If you were yelling at your screen during Game 5, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did the refs throw the game, or was this just another case of the league protecting its narrative? And if you're riding with a Fever into next season, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This story isn't over, and you won't want to miss what's next. What went down in the Indiana Fever versus Las Vegas Aces series isn't just a post-game headline. It's a warning shot, not just to the league, not just to the fans, but to every player grinding day in and day out, trusting that hustle will be enough in a league that clearly has its favorites. Let's be real. The Aces aren't just any team. They're the poster girls of the WNBA right now. Top-tier talent, glitzy endorsements, courtside celebrities. If there's a team the league wants to push into dynasty status, it's them. And hey, no shade, they've earned a lot of it. But when the game starts to feel like a scripted promo instead of a fair competition, that's where everything starts to crack. Now zooming on Game 5. The tension? Off the charts. You've got the Fever, bruised but not broken, clawing for every bucket. Odyssey sims out there channeling vintage Allen Iverson, refusing to let the dream die. Kelsey Mitchell battling cramps that would sideline most people for a week. Aaliyah Boston doing everything short of calling her own fouls after getting hacked under the rim. And Lexie Hull, taped up, grimacing, still diving headfirst into defensive rotations like the season depended on it. Because, spoiler, it did. The Aces? They were rattled. The crowd knew it. The cameras caught it. And the only thing keeping them upright? That God-tier whistle. Calls that at everyone online throwing up side eyes. Momentum killers at just the right time. And maybe, just maybe, the quiet understanding that this series could not end with the champs getting bounced by a 6th seed missing half its stars. But let's pull back. This isn't a video just about Lexie Hull, or even just the Fever. This is about what happens when an underdog dares to challenge the status quo. The WNBA needs stories like Indiana's to survive. You can't grow a league off 2 or 3 megastars. You need Cinderella runs, heartbreakers, upsets. You need teams like the Fever, who show up with no favors and still force the narrative to change. Instead, what did we get? A masterclass in inconsistency. A series where officiating felt more like plot armor for the favorites than actual regulation. Don't let anyone gaslight you. Those calls mattered. Every time a Fever player got slapped on the wrist with a phantom foul, it shifted the game. Every time an obvious no call left Indiana players staring in disbelief, it broke their rhythm. This wasn't a coin flip. It was death by 1,000 whistles. And it's not just fans calling it out. Players are speaking up. Coaches are fuming. Lexie Hull didn't just post a vague goodbye. She called out the league. She made it clear this isn't a game she signed up to play. When a player walks away, not because of injury, not because of age, but because of officiating, that's not retirement. That's a resignation from a rigged system. And if that doesn't make you uncomfortable, it should. Because what happens next season when it's another team in Indiana's shoes? What happens when rising stars realize that hustle doesn't matter if the whistle doesn't back them up? Let's talk about the culture this is creating. Players like Odyssey Sims shouldn't have to go full superhero mode just to keep a game close. She dropped 27 points in a do-or-die playoff game on a contract that's basically temporary. What more does she have to prove? She showed up, she led, she delivered, and the league barely blinked. Kelsey Mitchell? Gutted, cramping mid-game and still trying to push through because she knew no one else was getting that call. Aaliyah Boston? Elite two-way player and the literal backbone of the squad. Foul trouble every game. Coincidence? Doubt it. And let's not forget Shaw Petty. Barely got minutes, but when she did, she made them count. That's the type of depth that wins championships. If the refs let you actually play, that is, the heartbreak wasn't just in the scoreboard. It was in every cutaway shot of Fever bench, exhausted, frustrated, and still locked in. It was in every huddle where Hull shouted encouragement with ice wrapped around her knee. It was in that final possession where it felt like even the basketball gods couldn't overcome the officiating deficit. But here's where things get wild. The fans? They saw everything. Social media erupted. Clips of non-calls went viral. Breakdown threads detailing every bizarre whistle decision. Fans weren't just disappointed. They were furious. And this wasn't just about rooting interests. It was about fairness. About seeing a team leave it all on the court only to be met with silence from the league. The WNBA wants fans to show up, to buy tickets, to invest in the storylines. But if those storylines end in officiating drama every time a non-marquee team starts winning, people notice. Lexie Hull noticed. And the decision she made to walk away? That was the loudest statement anyone's made all season. Because it wasn't just about one game. It was about a system that's too comfortable letting this stuff slide. So, where do we go from here? The Fever aren't going anywhere. In fact, they just became must-watch basketball. This is a team that fought through the fire and almost burned the dynasty to the ground. And now, they're coming back stronger, healthier, hungrier. Caitlin Clark returns next season, fully integrated, fully rested. You think this team's going to sneak up on anyone again? No chance. The league's been warned. Aaliyah Boston's getting smarter, meaner. She's learned what it takes to survive deep in the playoffs. And she's not going to sit quietly while calls go the wrong way. Kelsey Mitchell, still one of the best scoring guards in the league. Still criminally underrated. Still ready to explode every night. And Sims? If the Fever don't lock her in, another team will. She proves she belongs, and not just on a hardship deal. This team, they're building something real. Not a flash-in-the-pan Cinderella run. A legit contender. And now they got a chip on their shoulder the size of the league office. Because the truth is, they're not just fighting for wins anymore. They're fighting for respect. For fair treatment. For a game where the best team wins. Not the most marketable one. Lexie Hull may have walked away from the WNBA, but she left behind something way more powerful: accountability. Her words forced fans, analysts, and even other players to look closer, to question what they were seeing, to demand better. And that's how change starts. So here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to let this moment fade into just another playoff footnote. Hull's exit should be the spark. The Fever's run should be the blueprint. And the fans? You have more power than you think. Hold the league accountable. Call out the inconsistencies. Support the players who are out here risking everything and asking for nothing but fairness in return. Because if the season taught us anything, it's this: you can't silence heart. You can't rig hustle. And you definitely can't stop a team that's already tasted how close greatness really is. Lexie Hull didn't quit because she was tired. She quit because she was done. Done playing in a league where effort doesn't seem to matter unless you're wearing the right jersey. Done giving everything to a system that, when it came time to protect its players, decided to protect its product instead. And now, the Fever are left without one of their emotional anchors. Hull wasn't just defense and hustle. She was glue. The one who dove into scrums, who clapped back at bad calls, who brought energy when everyone else looked like they'd been hit by a freight train. You don't replace that with a stat sheet. You feel it in the chemistry, in the quiet moments, in the soul of the team. You think these players didn't feel that loss immediately? They did. And yet, they still got up. They still posted those thank you graphics. They still showed up to exit interviews with grace and grit and straight-up poise. Because that's who this team is now. They're built from pain. From fouls that didn't get called. From highlight reels that skipped over them. From playing second fiddle to storylines that were already written. The league might have handed Vegas the spotlight, but the Fever? They earned the respect. Every bruise, every bench celebration, every possession that felt like a war, those were real. That's not marketing. That's not a media push. That's raw, unfiltered heart. And while the Aces are probably popping bottles and filming TikToks about another deep playoff run, Indiana's in the lab, watching tape, rehabbing, remembering every single moment they weren't supposed to survive and still did. Do you know how dangerous that makes them? We're not talking about a team that needs to be rebuilt. We're talking about a team that's already built. The frame is there. The materials are solid. The culture is fierce. All they needed was pressure, and this playoff run gave them that in bulk. You could feel it shift during that series. The league, the fans, even the broadcasters, everyone started realizing, wait a minute, this isn't a fluke. These women are coming for throats. And they're not waiting for permission to do it. Let's not forget the context, either. The Indiana Fever weren't even supposed to make the playoffs, let alone push the defending champs to the edge. That was never the league's plan. They weren't part of the preseason hype machine. They didn't have the endorsements or the awards or the headlines, but they had chemistry, they had depth, and they had that undeniable, "Oh, we're not scared of any of you" energy. And the league needs that energy. You can't build a sustainable future off of top-heavy branding. You need teams like Indiana who come in and make people nervous, who mess up the scripts, who force the WNBA to expand its spotlight because the stories can't be ignored anymore. That's what makes Lexie Ho's exit so symbolic. She didn't just walk away from a team. She walked away from a league that, in her eyes, didn't protect the fight, didn't respect the blood, sweat, and sacrifice it takes to even get to a Game 5. Her quitting wasn't giving up. It was a protest, a mic drop, and now it's on the league to listen. Because fans are watching, players are watching, and you better believe the Fever are watching. Every bad call, every article that skips over their fight, every off-season promo that pretends that series was a classic showdown without mentioning the controversy. There's no more hiding. The Indiana Fever are now the team to watch next season, not just because they're talented, not just because they're young and hungry, but because they've seen what it looks like when the system tries to break them, and they're still here. You think they forgot how that series ended? You think they didn't circle that rematch date with the Aces before the schedule even dropped? Oh, they remember. Every screen, every non-call, every time they were told to stay composed, while their opponent got another trip to the line. They're coming for everything. So if you're still here, still fired up, still waiting for the receipts to get cashed, don't go quiet. Let the league know this fan base isn't blind. Call it out. Share it. Talk about it. Because change only happens when the silence gets uncomfortable. And if you're rocking with the Fever next season, subscribe, comment, stay loud. Because next year, they're not just playing for wins. They're playing for justice.